After nearly a decade of service in the city's K-9 unit, Rex had earned his retirement. His handler, Officer Daniels, had spoken highly of him, loyal, sharp, and calm under pressure. When it was time for Rex to hang up his badge, the Collins family, longtime friends of Officer Daniels, volunteered to give him a peaceful home. Their home in rural Virginia offered open space, quiet days, and a chance for Rex to simply be a dog again. At first, everything seemed normal. Rex settled in quickly, especially bonding with 10-year-old Lily Collins, who had always wanted a dog. They became inseparable. Morning walks, evening snuggles, and endless games of fetch. Rex was gentle, obedient, and always alert. But within just a few weeks, the family began to notice something strange. Each morning, right after breakfast, Rex would walk straight to the far end of the backyard. There, near an old wooden fence, and beneath a cluster of sycamore trees, he would begin digging. At first, the family thought he was just adjusting to a new environment, or maybe chasing the scent of a rabbit or squirrel. But the digging didn't stop. In fact, it became part of his daily routine. Day after day, Rex would return to that same exact spot. His paws worked methodically, like he knew what he was looking for. But when he wasn't digging, he would just sit by the hole and stare into the ground, quiet and still, as if waiting for something to reveal itself. Tom Collins, the father of the family, initially brushed it off. It's probably just an old bone or something he buried, he joked one evening at dinner. But his wife, Natalie, wasn't convinced. It's not normal, she said, glancing out the window at Rex's silhouette under the moonlight. It's like he's remembering something. What was more unusual was Rex's expression. He didn't seem playful or excited while digging. Instead, he looked focused, almost solemn. His ears were often tilted forward, nose twitching, eyes locked on the dirt like it was speaking to him in a language only he understood. Lily was the first to take it seriously. She began sitting beside Rex during his routine. She brought him water, brushed the dirt from his fur, and asked him questions like he could answer. "What are you looking for, Rex?" she whispered one morning, her fingers gently stroking his back. He didn't respond, of course, but his tail gave a slow wag, and for a moment, she felt like he knew something no one else did. Weeks passed. The weather changed. Spring turned to early summer, and the hole got deeper. But nothing ever came out of the ground. No bones, no pipes, no trash, just dry soil and tangled roots. Still, Rex never missed a day. Even when it rained, he would stand guard over the spot, digging only when the ground allowed. By the third month, the family had started taking pictures and videos of his behavior. They showed friends and even posted a few clips online. Some people thought it was a quirky dog habit. Others called it the retired detective's last case. But those who saw it in person agreed Rex wasn't just playing. He was searching. And whatever he was searching for mattered. Then came a quiet Saturday morning that shifted everything. Lily's grandfather, Harold, came to visit. As they sat on the back porch sipping iced tea, Harold watched Rex dig for several minutes without saying a word. Then, he stood up, slowly walked to the fence, and squinted down at the disturbed patch of earth. He said softly, "That's exactly where the old shed used to be." Natalie looked up. "What shed?" "The one that burned down back in '82, Harold replied. "It was your grandmother's storage place. She kept her keepsakes in there, letters, photos, little things she didn't want to lose. We thought it was all gone in the fire." Everyone froze. Rex, meanwhile, kept digging calmly, steadily, like he already knew. The revelation about the old shed changed the way the family viewed Rex's digging. It no longer felt like a random habit or a retired dog's strange behavior. It felt purposeful, intentional, like he had been trying to tell them something all along. Harold stood near the fence, gazing at the hole. "I haven't thought about that shed in decades," he said quietly. "It was small, nothing fancy. Your grandmother kept all sorts of things in there. Journals, lockets, photo albums, little things that meant something to her." Lily's eyes lit up. "Do you think they're still down there?" Harold hesitated. "The fire was pretty bad. We thought it all burned, but maybe something survived." Rex seemed to respond to the shift in the air. His ears perked up, and he turned to face the family, almost as if encouraging them to pay attention. Then, without hesitation, he returned to digging. From that day forward, the Collins family took Rex's routine more seriously. Tom began marking the spot with small garden stakes, measuring the area Rex had covered. Natalie started researching how deeply fire debris might be buried after so many years. Lily, of course, remained by Rex's side every morning, sometimes reading out loud to him as he worked, sometimes just sitting silently, with a hand resting on his back. But as weeks turned into another full month, the family grew frustrated. Rex was still focused, but the hole was getting wider and deeper, and they still hadn't found anything significant. The earth was dry, the roots stubborn. It was hard work, and while Rex didn't tire easily, the humans around him began to question whether anything was really there. "I just don't want to get our hopes up," Tom admitted one evening as he watched Rex rest beneath the porch light. "Maybe he's just remembering smoke, or a scent he can't let go of." Natalie didn't respond right away. She looked at Rex, lying peacefully beside Lily. His paws were dirty, his nails worn, but his eyes were bright, focused, present. "No," she finally said, "there's something down there. I believe it." It was Lily who made the next move. The very next morning, she surprised everyone by showing up in work boots and gloves, holding a small hand shovel. "I'm helping him dig," she said firmly. "If he can do this every day, so can I," Tom smiled. "Well, if she's in, I'm in." By that weekend, the backyard had become a team effort. Each morning, the family dug alongside Rex. The hole began to take shape, not just a random pit, but an organized excavation. They took turns resting, handing off shovels, and collecting small bits of debris. Most of what they found was charred wood or rusted nails. But even that felt like progress. Every time someone felt discouraged, Rex reminded them to keep going. He never whined, he never quit. And somehow, that silent determination pushed the family to continue. Then, one morning, something changed. It was early, just after sunrise, when Rex began barking, not aggressively, but with short, excited yelps. He pawed the dirt faster than usual, pushing clumps of soil aside, as if something was just inches away. Lily rushed over, calling to her parents. Tom jumped into the hole with a larger spade, carefully removed several layers of dirt. That's when he heard a dull, metallic clang. He froze. "There's something here." Natalie's hands flew to her mouth. Harold stepped forward, wide-eyed, and whispered, "That's about where her chest would have been stored." Lily crouched beside Rex, who was now wagging his tail excitedly. His eyes locked on the dirt dot. Tom carefully cleared more soil until a flat, rusted edge appeared. It looked like a small metal box, old and weathered, but intact. No one spoke. The air seemed to thicken around them. Rex sat down, breathing steadily, eyes still fixed on the box as though guarding it. Lily broke the silence. "Is that it?" she whispered. "Is that what you've been looking for all this time?" Rex didn't move, but something in his calm expression said yes. The family stood together in awe, unsure of what they had just uncovered, but knowing deep down, this wasn't just a box. It was something far more meaningful. Something that had waited, patiently buried, to come back into the light. Tom knelt beside the mysterious metal box, brushing away the last bits of dirt. The top was rusted, the hinges crusted over with age. Still, it held together. Lily leaned in beside him, her eyes wide with anticipation, and Rex sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on the box, as though he was still standing guard. "I don't want to break it," Tom said, as he carefully ran his fingers along the edge, searching for a way to open it without damaging the contents. "If something's inside, and it's fragile, let's bring it onto the porch," Natalie suggested, already walking toward the house to grab gloves and a flashlight. They carried the box with care, placing it on the wooden table outside. The morning sun filtered through the sycamore trees, casting golden patches across the porch. Rex lay nearby, resting his head on his front paws, watching them with quiet attention. Harold stepped forward slowly, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the lid. "Let me try," he said. With a bit of effort and a soft creak, the lid finally gave way. The air went still. Inside, wrapped in what remained of a faded lace cloth, were several old objects. The first thing Harold lifted out was a delicate, silver locket, tarnished but still intact. He opened it and found a tiny photo inside, blurry from age, but unmistakably his late wife's. Natalie gasped and pressed her hands to her heart. "That's her pendant, the one she wore every Sunday." Tom carefully unfolded a brittle envelope, revealing a short letter in faded blue ink. The handwriting was neat, gentle. It was addressed to Natalie. "To my sweet girl," it began. "If you're reading this, then somehow time has brought this back to you." Natalie's eyes welled with tears before she even finished reading. Lily sat silently, taking it all in. She didn't fully understand the weight of the moment, but she knew it was something special, something real. She looked at Rex, who hadn't moved, still watching with calm intensity. They took the rest of the items out one by one. An old photograph of the family taken before the fire. A pressed flower wrapped in wax paper. A tiny worn notebook filled with handwritten recipes and thoughts, and at the very bottom of the box, wrapped in silk, was a small glass jar filled with seashells. She always said she wanted to retire near the ocean, Harold whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She kept those shells from a trip we took to Cape May before Natalie was born. The family sat around the table in silence for several minutes. There was nothing else to say. This wasn't just a box of forgotten belongings. It was a time capsule of love, memories, and history that had waited patiently in the earth for over 40 years. And somehow, Rex had found it. Later that evening, after they had carefully stored the contents inside the house, the family gathered on the porch again. The sky was painted in orange and pink, and the scent of summer flowers drifted through the air. Tom looked over at Rex. "How did you know?" he asked softly. Of course, Rex didn't answer, but Lily offered her theory. Maybe he smelled something, or maybe he just felt it. Harold nodded. Dogs remember more than we give them credit for. And if he was trained to find people, items, clues, maybe this was just another mission to him. Natalie looked at the old locket in her hand. Whatever it was, I'm glad he didn't give up. That night, Lily placed a blanket beside her bed, and Rex curled up on it without hesitation. She whispered to him before falling asleep, "You're not just a good boy, Rex. You're our hero." And for the first time in weeks, Rex slept without stirring, not restless, not alert, just peaceful. Because deep down, the mission he had carried for 6 long months was finally complete. Or so they thought. The discovery of the box brought a powerful wave of emotions to the Collins family. For days, they pored over its letters, showing the photos to relatives, and carefully preserving the items in a wooden shadow box they hung in the living room. It was a tribute not only to Natalie's late mother, but also to the miracle of how those memories had returned home. But something about it didn't feel finished. Rex still walked to the hole every morning. He didn't dig as frantically as before, but he would sniff, circle, and sit beside it. He stared at the ground with quiet focus, like he knew there was more left to uncover. His behavior sparked curiosity and a decision. "I think we need to keep going," Natalie said one morning, as she stood beside the half-dug hole, with her arms crossed. "What if there's more down there?" Tom hesitated. "We already found the box. What else could be buried?" Harold chimed in. "It's possible she had more than one box. Or maybe something got scattered when the shed burned down. Fire doesn't always destroy everything. It hides things too." Lily looked up from brushing Rex's fur. "He still thinks something's there." That was all it took. With shovels in hand and gardening gloves pulled tight, the Collins family once again turned their backyard into a project site. But this time, it wasn't just curiosity, it felt like a purpose. They widened the hole and started digging in sections, carefully moving dirt, scanning for metal or wood, and checking every layer for hints of the past. They worked in shifts. Tom focused on structure marking zones and organizing debris. Natalie kept a notebook with sketches and notes, documenting where they dug and what they found. Harold used a metal detector he borrowed from a neighbor to scan the area, and Lily, as always, stayed close to Rex, watching his reactions closely for signs. It didn't take long before they started finding small items: a melted key, a broken hinge, glass marbles, and what appeared to be the charred remains of a jewelry box. Each discovery sparked a new wave of excitement and memories. "This is her charm bracelet," Natalie said one afternoon, holding up a soot-covered chain with tiny silver charms. "I haven't seen this since I was a kid." They paused, huddled around the find, feeling as though they were piecing together a puzzle left behind by someone who never wanted to be forgotten. Rex remained calm, but alert. Every time they struck something meaningful, he was there, wagging his tail softly, sniffing at the dirt as if nodding in approval. Word of their discovery started to spread. Neighbors dropped by with lemonade and lawn chairs, offering encouragement, and sharing their own stories about the old shed and Natalie's mother. Some even remembered watching the fire all those years ago, standing helplessly as the flames consumed what they thought would never be recovered. "Your dog brought that memory back," one neighbor said, placing a hand over her heart. "I'd almost forgotten what that shed meant to your mom." By the end of the week, the Collins family had uncovered 3 more small boxes, each containing sentimental items, school awards, letters written by Natalie as a child, and even a tape recorder that, when repaired, played a short recording of Natalie's mother humming a lullaby. Tears came easily as the melody filled the house. "This is everything," Natalie whispered, wiping her eyes. "It's like she left pieces of herself behind, and somehow, Rex found them all." That night, as the family sat around the kitchen table, surrounded by boxes, letters, and old photographs, Lily placed her hand on Rex's head. "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't just find things, you brought us back together." Rex looked up at her, his eyes warm and calm. He didn't need words. His job wasn't over yet. But he had given them something they hadn't even realized. They were missing: a connection to the past, a reason to come together, and the belief that some memories, no matter how long buried, can still be found. The following morning arrived with a soft breeze and the promise of something new. After several days of continuous digging, the Collins family had uncovered more treasures than they ever expected. But Rex still wasn't finished. While the others were taking a break inside, Lily walked into the yard with a sandwich in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. She found Rex lying by the now widened and deepened hole, his head resting gently on his paws, eyes locked on one specific corner of the pit. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" she whispered, kneeling beside him. Rex's ears perked up at the sound of her voice. He stood and walked to the far side of the hole, sniffed the ground, and gave one sharp bark. Lily blinked. Something's still down there. She dropped her sandwich, ran back to the house, and called for her parents. Within minutes, Tom and Harold were back with shovels. "What is it this time?" Tom asked, half expecting it to be another rusted piece of metal or old hinge. Rex barked. Lily said, "He never barks like that unless he knows." That was enough. Tom and Harold began digging with focused precision, carving away layer after layer of compact earth. Rex stood nearby, tail still, eyes fixed on their movements. After nearly an hour, Tom hit something. This time, it was louder, a deeper, more solid clang. He paused and ran his gloved hand across the surface. "It's metal, big," he said, "but it's different." They cleared the remaining soil, revealing a rectangular steel box, longer and heavier than the others. It was bolted on each side, and had faint markings burned into the lid. Though partially rusted, the surface still had a shine in places. Tom's heart began to race. "Help me get it up," he said. Harold grabbed one side, while Tom lifted the other. Together, they heaved it onto a wheelbarrow and carefully brought it up to the porch. Rex walked beside them the entire way, never letting it out of his sight. Natalie had joined them by now, wiping dirt from her hands and glancing nervously at the large box. "That's not just a keepsake container," she said softly. "That looks like a safe." Tom nodded. "It is." It took Harold nearly an hour to cut through the rusted hinges. Finally, with a pop and a groan of strained metal, the lid opened. Inside was a neatly wrapped bundle of documents, photo albums, and a velvet case. The family gathered around as Natalie slowly opened the albums. They were filled with photographs no one had seen before, black and white snapshots of her mother as a teenager, holding baby Natalie, traveling, laughing, living a life none of them fully knew about. There were letters, 2 pages, and pages of handwritten notes, some addressed to Natalie, others to Harold, even one labeled "For my future granddaughter." Lily's eyes lit up as her mother unfolded the note and began reading aloud. "Dear granddaughter," it began, "if you're reading this, then something beautiful has happened. Somehow, you've found me again. I hope you are curious, brave, and keen just like I imagined you would be." Lily held her breath. "I left this for you because I knew memories fade, and sometimes families drift. But love waits. It lives in the ground, in the walls, in the heart of a home. And if you ever need to find me, you don't have to look far." Tears streamed down Natalie's face. Lily couldn't stop smiling. Then Natalie opened the velvet case. Inside was a brooch shaped like a rose, inlaid with a single pearl. "This was her most treasured piece," Harold whispered. "She wore it on her wedding day." Rex sat beside Lily, calmly watching, as though satisfied his work was nearly complete. But this box, this safe, was more than anyone could have imagined. It didn't just hold valuables. It held emotion. It held the soul of a woman who had once filled the house with laughter and warmth. And now, because of Rex, she was home again. The living room had transformed into a quiet museum of the past. Old photographs lined the coffee table. Letters were stacked in neat piles, some tied together with faded ribbon. The velvet case with the pearl-studded brooch sat in a place of honor near the fireplace, glowing softly under the afternoon light. Natalie sat cross-legged on the rug, a photo album open in her lap. She turned each page slowly, almost reverently, as though her mother's voice whispered behind every captured smile. "I don't remember these at all," she said, her voice hushed. "These must have been taken before I turned 5. Lily sat beside her, tracing the edge of a photo with her finger. "You both look so happy." "We were," Natalie said, then paused. "She used to sing all the time when she cooked, when she cleaned, even when she walked around the yard. I used to twirl around the living room, and she'd laugh and call me her little windmill." Tom was across the room, sorting through the documents they'd found in the safe. Old insurance papers, handwritten recipes, family records, pieces of a life once believed to be lost forever. "It's amazing what she thought to save," he said. "It's like she was preparing for someone to find this someday." Harold stood by the window, gazing out into the yard where the hole still remained, surrounded by shovels and buckets. "She always believed in keeping family stories alive. She said the worst thing that could happen wasn't losing things, it was forgetting people." Rex lay nearby on his dog bed, resting but alert, his head tilted just enough to follow the movement of the family. He hadn't returned to dig since the last box was found, but he always positioned himself near the porch door, as if staying close to the memories he had uncovered. Later that evening, the family gathered around the dining table. They placed some of the more delicate items in the center, like a centerpiece of history. Lily had brought down her school sketchpad, and was now drawing the brooch and pendant side by side. "I want to remember them forever," she said proudly. Natalie reached out and gently touched her daughter's hand. "You will, and one day, you'll share all of this with someone else." As the evening turned to night, Tom opened the tape recorder again. They'd managed to clean it up, and to their surprise, it still worked, though a bit crackly. With a soft click and gentle static, the voice of Natalie's mother came through. At first, she was humming a tune, slow, sweet, familiar. Then came her voice, warm and calm. "To whoever finds this," she said, "thank you for remembering me. I don't know if this will ever be heard, but if it is, it means my story hasn't been lost. I hope my love continues in the smiles you share, the meals you cook, and the songs you sing." Lily's eyes filled with tears, and Natalie leaned back in her chair, unable to speak. Harold quietly wiped his glasses. Even Tom, usually stoic, reached over to squeeze his wife's hand. The message continued for a few more seconds, before fading into a soft hum again. After the recording stopped, silence fell over the table. But it wasn't empty. It was full of memories, full of presence, full of a love that had stretched across decades, buried beneath soil and time, waiting patiently for the right moment to return. Natalie stood and crossed the room to where Rex lay. She knelt down, brushing her fingers through his fur, and whispered, "You found her. Somehow, you knew." Rex looked up, gave a gentle wag of his tail, and rested his head on her knee. No bark, no movement, just quiet understanding. That night, as the house settled, Natalie tucked Lily into bed and kissed her forehead. "Good night, little windmill," she whispered. Lily smiled sleepily. "Good night, Mama, and good night, Grandma, wherever you are." Outside, the stars shone brighter than usual, and down below, one old police dog stood silently at the porch door, keeping watch not just over the home, but over the memories he had helped bring back to life. By the end of the month, the Collins backyard had changed. What was once just a patch of dirt had become a place of remembrance. The family decided to build a small garden over the area where Rex had dug so faithfully for 6 months. It wasn't just a garden, it was a tribute. Tom laid stone edging in a neat oval, while Lily planted daisies and lavender with Natalie by her side. At the very center of the space, they placed a single wooden bench, polished and carved with care, and behind the bench, a flat stone marker stood, engraved with words the entire family had agreed on together. "For the dog who remembered what we forgot." The garden became more than just a memorial, it became a quiet spot where the family could sit and feel connected to the past. Neighbors stopped by to visit, some brought flowers, others brought memories. Mrs. Green from across the street came one afternoon, holding an old photo in a cracked frame. "This was your mother at the block party, back in '79, she said, handing it to Natalie. "She danced barefoot in the driveway and made everyone laugh. I didn't even know I still had this." Natalie smiled through misty eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Word of Rex's discovery had spread far beyond their quiet neighborhood. A local news station aired a short feature on the retired canine, who brought a family's history back to life. People sent letters, some shared stories of their own dogs. Others simply wrote to say how much the story had moved them. One letter stood out. It was from a retired police officer who had once trained Rex in his early years. "I always knew Rex had a strong nose and a stronger heart," the letter read, "but what he did with your family proves something we trainers always believed. These dogs don't just follow commands. They form bonds. They carry memories. They protect legacies." That letter was framed and placed inside the living room, right beside the shadow box holding Natalie's mother's belongings. But through all the attention and the emotional highs, Rex remained his usual calm, loyal self. He never returned to the garden to dig again. Instead, he would lie quietly beside the bench, especially in the evenings, his eyes fixed on the sky, as if still watching over something beyond understanding. One warm evening, Lily sat beside him, swinging her legs gently off the side of the bench. "You're not just a hero," she said softly. "You're part of our family story now." Rex gave a slow wag of his tail, his body relaxed, his breathing even. For a moment, he turned his head and nuzzled her arm gently, before laying it back on his paws. The Collins family found peace in those weeks. Not just because of what they'd discovered, but because of what it brought out in them. They laughed more. They listened to one another. They started cooking recipes from the old notebook, even though some of the ingredients were outdated or hard to find. One evening, Natalie baked her mother's blueberry pie for the first time in decades. It didn't turn out perfect. The crust was uneven, and the filling was slightly too runny, but no one complained. It was delicious, not because of how it tasted, but because of what it meant. "This is the pie she made for every birthday," Harold said, closing his eyes as he took a bite. "I haven't tasted this since 1981. That night, Natalie stepped outside with a cup of tea and sat beside Rex on the porch. The garden glowed under the moonlight, the stone marker catching just enough shimmer to reflect a soft silver hue. "Don't know what brought you to that spot, Rex," she whispered, "but I think she knew you'd come." Rex didn't respond, but he didn't have to. Somehow, in a quiet backyard in Virginia, a retired canine dog had done more than uncover lost items. He'd brought a family closer, rebuilt a bridge to the past, and reminded everyone that love doesn't end when someone is gone. It waits, like a faithful dog by the door, ready to return when the time is right. As the seasons began to shift, so did the rhythm of life in the Collins household. The garden in the backyard bloomed fully now, its flowers growing brighter and stronger with each passing week. Butterflies visited often, and the wind moved through the leaves in a way that felt peaceful, almost musical. It was a place the family visited often, not just to remember what was found, but to appreciate what they still had. Rex, too, had changed. He didn't dig anymore. He didn't patrol the backyard like he used to. Instead, he spent most of his time resting near the garden, watching over it from a quiet spot beneath the sycamore tree. It was as if he knew his mission was over, and he could finally rest. Lily visited him every morning before school, and every afternoon afterward. Sometimes, she read books to him. Other times, she just sat quietly, her presence a thank you that didn't need words. One crisp autumn morning, Natalie sat beside Rex with a photo album in her lap. She smiled as she flipped through the pages, now full of the discoveries they had made together. There were pictures of the jewelry, the letters, the pendant, the locket, and of course, the safe. But the most treasured photo was one Lily had taken of Rex standing in the middle of the dug-up garden with dirt on his nose and his eyes filled with purpose. "We should write a book about him," Lily said one evening, over dinner. "Other kids should know what he did." Tom chuckled. "I think that's a great idea. He didn't just find things," Lily said. "He reminded us how to feel." As winter approached, Rex began to slow down even more. His steps were a little stiffer, his naps longer. The vet said it was natural. He was an old dog now, after all. But the family still took extra care. They brought him warm blankets, special meals, and plenty of love. One evening, as the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, Rex walked out to the garden on his own. The wind was cold but gentle. He paused beside the stone marker, looked up at the sky, then lay down in the grass, curling up like he had 100 times before. Lily followed him a few minutes later, holding his favorite toy and a blanket. "You okay, boy?" she whispered, sitting down beside him. Rex lifted his head slowly, rested it on her lap, and closed his eyes. He stayed there, calm and content, until the stars were out. Tom came to carry him back inside, and the whole family tucked him in near the fireplace that night. They sat with him, telling stories about the discoveries they had made, reading aloud one of the letters from the box, and playing the old tape just one more time. And then, quietly and peacefully, Rex fell asleep. Next morning, The family woke to find that Rex had passed some time in the night. There was no pain, no struggle, just peace. His body lay still, his expression soft, like he was dreaming of the garden one last time. The Collins family cried, of course. Losing Rex wasn't easy, but what they felt even more was gratitude for the time they had with him, for the mission he completed, and for the memories he unearthed from the depths of their family history. They buried him beside the garden, wrapping him in Lily's favorite blanket, and placing his favorite toy at his side. The spot was marked with a small plaque that read, "Rex, our hero, our guide, our heart." People from the community came to pay their respects. Some brought flowers. Others brought stories of their own dogs. But everyone left with the same thought, that this wasn't just the story of a retired police dog. It was the story of how one animal, through loyalty and instinct, brought healing and connection to a family who didn't even know something was missing. Years later, the garden still bloomed. Lily, now grown, had written that book she dreamed of, a children's story called Rex and the Garden of Memories. It sat in libraries and classrooms across the state, reminding young readers that love, like stories, can always be found if someone is willing to dig deep enough. And in the heart of a quiet Virginia backyard, the legend of Rex lived on. Forever.